Ted Kaczynski, right? His whole thing was, he was saying, we're going down the abyss, and it's because technology's leading it. This is kind of right in line. I mean, technology, it's done wonderful things for humanity, right? It's made life easier in a lot of ways, but we're a slave to it, and we have to stay abreast of it, or stuff isn't going to work right. I'm not saying Apple's not staying abreast, but the technology's changing, and you know as well as I, because you're a technical person, we're now a slave to this technology. Bill Gates,
I would agree. Yeah.
Elon Musk said that we ought to take a break from AI, right? And stop and let's think this through before we launch it. And Bill Gates said, no, I oppose that. And they asked him why. And he said, well, if we stop, the bad guys are going to continue working on it. We have to stay ahead of them. I think what we're seeing with Trump right now, with all the things that he's doing, it is my understanding that one of the things the Trump administration wants is for the U.S. to lead in AI technology. Yep. So we're going to need a lot of energy. We're going to need a lot of brain power, and it's going to be a lot of jobs will be created over it, and it'll be a 24/7 hustle around the clock to stay ahead of this stuff, or to be the world leader in AI.
And that's begs the question: do we have the workforce where you go over to a place like China, and this is more so for the factory jobs than like the AI programming development jobs, but you have a nomadic workforce in China that's larger than our population here in the United States, or about as large as our entire population in the United States, right?
It's crazy, man. 300 million.
Yeah, 200 to 300 million people that will go kind of like when we are in our industrialization period. You'll go work a Ford factory job for $5 a day, right?
And they'll stay in a place real close to where they work. Yep. And they'll live there, and it takes their life. And it's just literally like slave labor in a way,
Yeah, and so you beg the question, are we slaves to our technology when really, I think we want our technology to be slaves to us, right? Of like, again, we're working to a place in, global civilization, global society where we're trying to figure out who's going to be the slaves making our technology that, we make our lives like so dependent on. If we can't figure out a way for the technology to by and large build the technology, we're essentially the ones becoming slaves to it, right? Or as you made the argument, already are there, right? And yeah, I think it goes back to like in the way that people talk about social media being like almost like an inherently bad, technology. And it's like anything, right? It's up to the person on how they use it. But now, if you didn't start using like that sort of technology with the best habits, right? Because of like your parents just gave you the tablet or your phone or whatever, and never instilled any sort of discipline or life outside of the screen, right? Then again, it's almost natural that you become a slave to it, right?
Yeah. And this argument. It's a little, it's not the first time, of course, that this sort of thing's happened. And to say that we're a slave to technology, yeah, we are. In my opinion, we're also a slave. I mean, if you're an athlete and you're a high-performing athlete, you don't get to just lay around. You're working your butt off to keep your
slave
skill
to the
up.
owner.
So you're a slave to. I heard a field goal. One of the NFL field goal kickers was saying, he learned all his life that you're only as good as your last kick, your last field goal attempt. Yeah. He said, well, that's really not true. I learned you're only as good as your next field goal attempt. Right. So in order to do well, you have to stay on the game, right? So that's the way it is. That's life. So this is just another manifestation of that, I guess. But it's so complex. The technology is so complex, and it's fickle. Yep. It'll hard to please. You have to do it just right, or it's not going to work right.
Right.
That's one of the frustrating things me as a non-technical person I find